Hey, back from my walk. It's been a while. It's around a little after 11. Well, it's close to 11. Yesterday. Wow. Number one, let me get this out of the way because it's fresh in my mind. I gotta get out. They helped remind me that I'm on the right path because the way they talked about how they got to where they got to in this, like now, doing what they are doing, the play that they're doing, that they are producing themselves. It's Waiting for Godot. Sir Ian McKellen and Sir Patrick Stewart. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, I went and saw them yesterday in New York. That was my trip. I went and saw them do a Q and answer. But it wasn't even so much we wrote down questions and submitted them. But just to sit in the midst of these gentlemen, I mean, the lives they led. Plus, they were knighted for their acting. That's amazing. They start off by telling us the history of what they did, how they started. And it was interesting because both of them really didn't start off in a school. They started off by doing, like Sir Ian McKellen, he started off as just like, I forgot which one. They started off with, no, it was Sir Ian McKellen. He started off just being an extra in a show, and then he watched he happened to be doing a show, and there was also a vaudeville act doing their job. He watched them, and he totally just learned from watching them and their professionalism and how, they set up, cleaned up, how they just do stuff. So it was fabulous, honestly. And I saw bits of myself, not so much like, oh, I'm brilliant like they are. No, I saw how they started, where it wasn't so much, oh, I did a play and I fell in love. No, they produced, they worked backstage, on stage, and they understood the work that it takes to do everything, to put on. First of all, they started in theater, which is how I started, and which is recommended for all actors. You should have not so much you should have a history of theater, but you should be comfortable with the stage. I started off doing stage work. My first show ever was Music Man in high school, and I went on from there, and I did stage work up until I did extra work, and then I went right back to stage. But the transition is a little different, but you should definitely break ground with theater, because that's where it all began, and that's where it will always be. And I find that I've seen a lot of interviews with actors I liked, and movie actors. A lot of them really, in one point or another, started off in stage, or want to go back to stage, or want to do a stage show, because that's the realism of acting. And I remember, Sir Patrick Stewart sitting there talking about how he loved doing theater and how it helped him into doing the acting that he does on, Star Trek and X-Men, and it just, how theater it breaks ground for actors. It teaches us to, I'm trying to figure out how to tell you and say it without sounding dorky. How to create a character and how to exist within your character by giving the character a story and existing within the story you created. That way you can portray your character honestly and truthfully to an audience. So the last play I did, which was the second time around, I left the show, so I'll explain that another time. I had to give my character a story because the director's husband, who happened to be helping out in the show, he was looking and he's like, "Can I ask you something?" And I'm like, "Sure." He's like, "What does your character do?" And I'm like, "Well," he's like, not like her job or anything, but I know she does what she does written in the play, but does she do anything? And at first I was kind of blown away, but I understood what he's saying. It's like my character just exists in that scene right there, and I gave it no life, and that's my fault. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I thought about it. I was pissed off at first. I was like, "How dare you?" And then I thought about it, and I began to give her a story. And once I gave her a beginning, it would explain what I'm doing in this story. And I also explain the end, because she's an old woman. And the story goes through time, and I knew by the end of the play, this particular character had died of old age. But I had to give her the beginning of her life, her existence in her scene, which would make her, like, I'd say in her 60s and 70s. I made her put her in her 70s, her mid to late 70s, and then, the end of her life. But it added life to my character, and I was able to say the lines I was given and the actions I had to perform. I gave it purpose. It wasn't just a joke. She had an existence. She had a purpose. And I know some people who deal, outside of actors, like, "Oh, she's going into this thing." It's very hard. And I understand it all too well, and I'm learning to appreciate it so much. And when I sat there and listened to these gentlemen talking, I understood too well that they were doing the same thing I was doing. And I was like, "Oh my God, not so much I got it, but I'm on the right path." And I understood, which is something I normally, if you talked about any other job, I'm usually like, never do. So I like it. And it's homework for me. And I always like learning to better, I don't even call it a craft. I say better my skill, better what I know how to do. And I'm able to talk to other actors about it. My friend Vanessa, who's a fellow actor, we sat there and we talked and we loved it because we understood what was going on. I know this is going to be a long one, so who knows? Hey, I might even make it a two-parter because we're at 8 minutes now. And I'm going to go for a little bit. I'm going to pause, and then I'm going to do another one. Don't worry. It's going to be and you know what? It's going to be a long one. Just deal. Anyway, during the time, there were 2 questions that were asked that I can answer. They asked, number 1, somebody asked, what was your moment where you discovered this is what you want to do, acting? And number 2, who was your teacher? Who influenced you to do it? I can answer that really quickly. I'll answer the second question first. My art teacher, Mrs. DeBalo, she really influenced me, not so much in acting, but in the arts. She was the first person who really encouraged me about my drawing and everything, and she loved what I did, and I loved her for letting me do what I did. And my acting career, my acting teacher, you guys already know who she is, Lynn Winnick. She was an awesome teacher, and it wasn't that she gave me any specific lesson. She just taught me the little nuances of acting, and, having directed me in plays and everything. At first I didn't get it, but when I think about it now, or anytime I'm doing a play or a show and I hear hints from the director or fellow hints from actors, I hear her. So those are my influences. And the second question, what was the moment? I'll make it quick. I was in my dorm room. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I always sleep to have sound. I always have to have sound when I sleep. And I was listening to, on my Walkman, that's right, old school, I was listening to Barbra Streisand's Broadway album that my mom had. I was just playing it in my ear and in my ear, and, I remember she did a version of Someday from West Side Story, and I loved it. If you hear it, if you get a chance to hear it, listen to it. It's so amazing. So I was listening to it, and I'm like 3 something in the morning. It's like 3:30 in the morning. I don't know. I remember looking at the time. I think it had to do with 3:30. So I'm laying in bed, and I'm listening to her sing the song, and I could just see me in the song. Not so much, I could see me performing, acting within it. I just see me, everything. And it was the first time I was ever like that, and I was just in awe. And then I remember I just sat up in bed and I was saying to myself, I want to be an actor. I want to be an actor. And it was like a big release. Yes, that's what they said. They said the first time you outed yourself. And I'm like, because everybody was looking, outed yourself, meaning sexuality or anything. No, outed yourself meaning you knew you were an actor. You knew you wanted to do this. And that was the first time I outed myself about wanting to be an actor. And from then on, it all has been what it's been. And that was 1988. I finished out the next year of college, and then I just moved on, and you know the rest. Anyway, we're at like 13 minutes, so I'm going to get off now. And like I said, the snippet review, New York City review, you don't have much of the street stuff, but that's okay. And you'll get what you get. But, you know. Lately, it's just been very, very hush-hush about filming while we're doing it. So I lucked out and I got some snippets and I got some pictures. So anyway, that's what I do. And that's what I want to do the rest of my life. And that's why I love acting. I mean, Anyway, babbling, acting. I'll see you guys later. Have a great day and see you in the morning. Bye.